Hey there, students. It's your favorite teacher, Coach Shipley, here with another math video. Today we're going to be talking about naming angles and also angle addition, kind of similar to segment addition, but only with angles. So first off, an angle is formed when you have two lines that intersect. Okay, anytime two lines intersect, they're going to form an angle. An angle is essentially just the space between those two lines. How much of a space there is between them is an angle. Okay, so first we talk about how to name an angle. Okay, just like we name lines and segments and planes and points, we've got to be able to name an angle. So a couple ways you can name an angle. If the angle is labeled like this with a 1 or a 2, then you can just call it angle 1. Okay, and the symbol we use for angle, you'll see, is just a little angle like this, and you just call it angle 1. So that's one way to name this angle, is angle 1. You can also name it by using the point at the vertex, okay, or where the two lines meet, we call that the vertex. So at that point, okay, whatever that point is, in this case it's A, you can name the angle based off of whatever point that is. So we can also call it angle A. And that's the second way. The third way you can name it is by using all three letters. Okay, so if we use all three letters, the key is you have to have the point that's the vertex be the letter in the middle. All right, so A has to be the letter in the middle if we use all three letters. So we can call it angle BAC, or we could call it angle CAB. As long as A is in the middle, we're good. Okay, so all four of these are naming this exact same angle. Okay, and you might say, well, why would we use all this if we can just use one letter? Well, sometimes, like we'll see in some of these other examples, there are multiple angles with this letter, and you've got to be able to distinguish one from another. That'll make more sense here in a second when I show you. Okay, so let's practice right here on naming these angles in as many ways as possible. Okay, as many ways as possible. So this first one, well, we can name the angle based off of the letter at the vertex. So we can just call this angle Y. We can use all three letters and say X, Y, Z. So angle X, Y, Z. Or of course we can do those same three letters but in the other order, Z, Y, X. Remember, the Y has to be in the middle. Now the fourth way is if there's a label right here. If this was angle 1 or angle 2 or angle 12, whatever. Well, it doesn't have that label. So this is the most ways that we can name this angle right here, just these three ways. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. You guys pause yours and see if you can name all the different ways to name this angle right here in problem number 2. Alright, so here are the four possible ways to name this angle. You can call it angle 1 because that's the label on the inside of the angle. You can call it angle B because that's the letter at the vertex. Or you could use all three letters and say angle ABC. Again, B's got to be in the middle because it's the vertex. Or you could say angle CBA. So all four of those would be ways you could do number 2. Let's look at number 3 real quick. This one's a little trickier because now you've got two angles. So we've got to name as many angles as possible. So this angle right here, we can call it angle 2. Maybe we can. There we go. Angle 2. We could call it angle K. Alright, we could call it angle JKM. Or we could call it angle MKJ. Alright. Now, here's the issue we run into. So see, this says angle K. Well, when we call it angle K, if you just told me we were talking about angle K, I don't really know if you're talking about this angle K or this angle K. So that's the issue we run into with just using a single letter as opposed to three letters. Whenever there's just one angle like this, we can call it angle B, and there's no confusion, there's nothing to be confused about because this is the only angle B. But right here we have multiple angle K's. It could be this one, it could be this one, or it could be the big angle, the whole angle could be angle K. So we don't really want to use angle K in this example just because it can get confused with all the other angles. So these three are ways to name this small angle. Let's name the other angle, so the other small angle, we can call it angle MKL, or or we could call it angle LKM. There's no label on it, so we can't, use angle 2 like we did on this one. Okay, so those are the two small angles. Now, we also got to label the big angle. We can call the big angle angle JKL or angle LKJ. Alright, again, we can't call it angle K because I don't know that you're talking about the big angle or one of the small angles, because all of them would be an angle K. So here's all the options for problem number 3. Alright, let's keep on cruising. So this says determine if each set of angles are adjacent or vertical. Alright, so we've probably already talked about adjacent and vertical, but just a little refresher. Adjacent angles are angles that share a side. So 1 and 4 are adjacent because they share this side. 1 and 2 are adjacent, 2 and 3 are adjacent, 3 and 4 are adjacent because they all share a side. Vertical angles are the angles that do not share sides. So 1 and 3 would be vertical, and 2 and 4 would be vertical. So right here, when it asks angle 1 and angle 2, do they share a side? That's what you need to ask yourself. Do they share a side? Yes, angle 1 and 2 both share a side, so that means they are adjacent. So I'm going to put ADJ for adjacent. What about 4 and 2? Do they share a side? No. 4 has these two sides, and angle 2 is made by these two sides. So 4 and 2 are not adjacent, they are vertical. Angle AOE and COD. So let's look at this picture right here. AOE. Let's draw it. Go from A to O and then to E. So that's the angle we're talking about when we say AOE. And let's draw COD. Angle C to O to D. Okay, so these two angles right here. I'm going to put a little angle mark in here, connecting the two sides. So this angle and this angle. Well, the question is, do they share side or do they not share side? AOE are these two lines. CO and D are these two lines. So these two angles do not share sides, so they are vertical. Alright, well, let's look at number 7. Actually, let's pause the video, let you guys try number 7 on your own. See if you can figure it out. So just pause your video, give it a try, and then I'll tell you the answer. Alright, so angle AOB starts here, goes to O, and then up to B. And then angle BOC starts at B, goes to O, and then goes up to C. So the angles we're talking about are this angle right here and this one right here. Notice these two angles do share a side. So because they share a side, they are adjacent to each other. Adjacent just means next to or beside. They share a side, so they're adjacent. Alright, so let's look down here at example 3. We want to name a pair of angles that fall into the following categories. So vertical angles. We just need to name a pair of angles. Not all of them, just one pair. Okay, so what we're looking for is two lines that cross each other. Okay, you can pick any two lines that cross past each other. I'm going to look at maybe this one and this line. So line FC and line AD. So see where they cross to the angles that are made that do not share a side. Okay, so this angle right here touches these two sides, and the angle over here uses the other two sides. So this angle and this angle are not, they are vertical angles. So now I've got to write the name of them. So how can I name this angle right here? Well, it goes from A to G to F. G is the vertex, so I got to put that letter in the middle. So I'm going to say angle AGF and angle. This angle, the G's got to be in the middle again. And I can use C or D first, it doesn't matter. So C, G, D. That would be an example of vertical angles. Okay. So adjacent angles. Any two angles that are side by side. Any two angles that share a side will work. So all I got to do is pick a side. Let's say we use this side. Doesn't matter. Alright, so then the angles that share that side could be this angle and this angle. Alright, those two share this side right here. So we can call one angle BGC. Okay, could also call it angle 2. Let's just call it angle 2 this time. So we can say angle 2 and angle EGC. Alright, so there's some adjacent angles. Okay, so next, number 10, a linear pair. So a linear pair, just to refresh our memory, is a pair of angles that form a line. Okay, so two angles that when you put them side by side are making a straight line. So, for example, we got right here FGA, and then AG and C. Okay, so those two angles, this big angle and this small angle, combine to form a straight line all the way from F to C. So those would be an example of a linear pair. So we can say angle 1, because this is angle 1, or we could say FGA, either way. Angle 1 and angle AGC. G's got to be in the middle because it's where the two sides meet. Okay, so that's an example of a linear pair. Okay, now complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles that form a 90-degree angle. All right, so right here you've got a 90-degree angle right here from FG to E, but complementary angles are two angles that combine to make 90. So the only ones we could really use are the other side of this. Okay, we know that this is 90 because that makes a straight line. So if this is 90, this has to be 90. So these two angles right here are our complementary angles. They're the two that add up to be 90. So I'm going to call those angle CGD and EGD. Just make sure the G's in the middle and use the other two letters on the outside and you're good. And the last one, supplementary angles, are angles that add up to 180. So we need to find two angles that add up to 180. We can use FGE and EG and C because they both make 90. So angle FGE and angle EGC. FGE and EGC combine together to make a straight line, so they're supplementary. Supplementary means they add up to 180. Alright, now the last thing we'll look at is angle addition. Okay, so how to add angles. So it's essentially the same thing as it was with segment addition. You're going to take one part of the angle, add it to the other part of the angle, and that's going to equal the whole angle. So this part right here is angle AOB. Add that to the other part, which is angle BOC, and that should equal the big angle, angle AOC. Alright, so that's essentially the angle addition postulate. It's very similar to the segment addition. Just remember, you take part of the angle, add it to the other small part, and that should equal the whole. So let's look at one actual example. They want to find the measure. Okay, this means measure of angle HIS. If measure of angle HIJ is 157 and measure angle SIJ is 33. So let's label angle HIJ. So HIJ is the big angle. Alright, that big angle is 157 degrees. Okay, from here to here. And then SIJ is 33. Well, SIJ is this part right here. Okay, and they want us to find HIS, which is this part. So we're going to add the two parts. X plus 33 should equal the whole, which was 157. Then we just subtract 33. So X is going to equal 144 degrees. So that's the measure of angle HIS. Number two, a little bit trickier. So it tells you measure of angle ABD, which is the whole angle, right? So the whole thing, they say, is 79 degrees. And they want us to find the measure of angle ABC and angle DBC. And they give us this part is 5x plus 4 and this part's 8x minus 3. So you're going to set up the equation by adding the parts to equal the whole, which they told us is 79. So 5x and 8x make 13x. Positive 4 minus 3 is plus 1. So I'll subtract 1. That leaves 13x, and 79 minus 1 is 78. Then I'll divide by 13. And 78 divided by 13 is 6. So x equals 6. But is that what the question asks? No, they ask what are the measure of angle ABC and DBC. All we found was x. So what we've got to do is take it and plug it back in to the expression for ABC. So ABC is this expression. So I've got to do 8 times 6 minus 3. That's 48 minus 3 is 45. So measure of angle ABC equals 45. And the other one's the measure of angle DBC. Well, if the whole thing's 79 and one of them's 45, you just do 79 minus 45, and that'll give you the amount that's left over, 34 degrees, to give you DBC. Yes, you could plug 6 in. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 plus 4 is 34. Either way works, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it, see if you guys can find the answer for 3, 4, and 5. All right, go ahead and give those a try, and I'll go over them. Okay, so right here on number 3, we notice that 2x and 54 do not share a side, so they're vertical. And we know that vertical angles are always congruent. So we can set up our equation as 2x equal to 54. Vertical angles are always equal to each other. So I'm going to set them equal, then solve, divide by 2, divide by 2. 54 divided by 2 is 27. So we found the missing variable, x is 27. We don't have to plug it in because they just said solve for the missing variable. All right, on number 4, this is important. We see this angle mark right here, which means that this whole angle is 90 degrees. So we're going to do segment addition by saying this part plus this part should equal the total 90. So one part's B plus the other part 63 has to equal 90. Then you just subtract 63 from both sides. So B is going to equal 90 minus 63, which is 27. So that one's also 27. All right, number 5. These two angles form a linear pair, which means they make a straight line. A straight line is 180 degrees. Okay, so when we see that it's a straight line, we know that these two must add up to 180. Just like when we saw this red mark, we knew these two had to add up to 90. A straight line is automatically 180. So I know I've got to add these together. 5x plus 4 plus 51 equals 180 because it makes a straight line. So I'm going to combine like terms. 4 plus 51 is 55. Now I got to subtract 55 from both sides. So that cancels. On the left I still have 5x, and on the right I have 180 minus 55, which equals 125. Divide by 5 and divide by 5. Type it in your calculator. 125 divided by 5 is 25. So right here x equals 25. Alright, well that's all for naming angles and angle addition. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and let's go ahead and practice.